All right. Welcome everybody to our episode here of Between Two Teachers for Friday, June 3rd. In the
July.
age of,
We're in July.
we're in July. Good grief, July 3rd, and in the age of COVID. In the age of COVID, trying to make sense of it. My name is Consuelo Lara, and
I'm Madeline Cronenberg, and we are here today once again greeting you from the sacred land of the Chochenyo Karkin Ohlone peoples. And I'm always very happy to do that. Actually, the other day I was in a conference, two conferences now, where they also did a recognition of the sacred lands. Right, the League of Women Voters and the National Education Association.
Yeah.
Right?
I've been hearing it too. That's
good.
Cool. That's wonderful. Good. And today our topic, we're all concerned about the opening of school. What's going to happen? What are the needs? What are the problems? What are the issues? And I really think that we at the beginning thought, oh, by the time school is going to start, it'll be going down.
Yeah.
But in fact, it's the opposite. And so we want to talk a lot about what the plans are, especially the issues of teachers. We're teachers, and so we're concerned about that perspective for sure. So let's see, where do we want to start?
Well, it's a big perspective. I am going to just say that it does come together with the justice. There is an education justice perspective here, besides just the health justice and the health and logistics issues that people talk about as far as this goes, right? And the education justice on the I'm not going to share the screen today, but on that on our Trello board, just so that you know it, I've got a link to the National Education Association Education Justice page. And one of the things they have on there is a link to a group of videos, actually a YouTube channel put up by two other teachers who are two young male teachers from Washington State. And they have a website that talks about a primer for talking about racism and how to be an anti-racist white teacher. And I think that is very on point. They've put it up some time ago, a couple of years ago. Their names are Luke Michener and Terry Jess. And so I'll have the link in for that. And I think that's one of the directions we have to go, because one of the sets of solutions here is to have our teachers who are predominantly white in America. And our district is no different, and the county is no different. And that's the consequence of the fact that, especially for older teachers, they didn't have the options that as women for career paths. And so that there are all kinds of reasons why we have this predominantly white female teaching force. But it's an issue that needs to be addressed. And there are, right, and it's a partnership. It's not that what has to happen is everybody's got to understand how to work through it and understand the issues as they exist today in 2020.
Yeah, there's no one solution. There's no one, I mean, everybody has their thing to take care of at every level. And so there's so many issues we've got to look at. And this is the time right now, as soon as we can. People are looking at, but when it comes to opening schools, not so much looking at the social justice aspect.
No, it is like absent from the.
Yeah.
I have been looking at the plans, and I've got links in here to the folks at EdSource did a compilation of the state and federal plans that are out there, and some of the county plans, the California county plans. They only found one plan. They found one from Hemet as a district plan. I actually found a couple of other districts. Pasadena has a plan. Dublin has a plan. And those plans are out there. Most districts are taking a little longer to get their plans out. But even with those, the tendency, first of all, none of them are addressing the issues that the education justice community is looking at. That's number one. And number two, they're not really addressing some of the issues around the parent community. The issue around taking care of children whose families expected them to be able to be taken care of in a school setting 5 days a week. And that's built into how the family operates and how the family is able to support itself. And that there are a lot of presumptions built into these plans that parents can just handle things and won't lose their homes and become homeless if they can't go to work.
Yeah. And this is one of the things that came up with our teachers here in the district about, they see the need for the district, the teachers, to work with the families because they've got unemployment, income problems, they're insecure housing, food, healthcare. There's so many issues that are affecting them to come back, of course. And the biggest thing is we know that predominantly our teachers are baby boomers, and many of them are close to retirement. They're older. And so they don't want to come back and risk their health.
Right.
They shouldn't have to. So, oh my gosh, there's just so many layers to this and so many questions. And that needs to be one thing for sure, that we look at the health aspect of it before returning to school.
It's been addressed in different ways. So I've looked at the plan, and I've got links to these other plans on here. The one, for example, from Miami. And in Miami, what the option that's being given to every family is you can come back 5 days a week, or you can go online. And if you go online, you're going to have a different teacher than if you come back 5 days a week. But and what they're doing, I think, is an AB at a morning and an afternoon cohort, right there. So that's it. You just get to make the choice. And they're a one-to-one district like we are. They've got their hot spots out there, so they're not concerned about that. But what they are concerned about is that their families need to bring their children back, right? The American Association of Pediatricians have said that they think it's incredibly important that we measure and the risks, the social and emotional risks of isolation, and how that is going to negatively impact children if they aren't able to come back, if it's kept online.
Yeah. Developmentally, the growth of a child, I mean, all of that, they've got to have that interaction with kids. They've got to, the social relationships, all of that. So you're right. And I don't think anybody's looking at that. I don't think.
No, I mean, it's sort of, I don't even see it in the questions. I mean, what they're saying is, oh, here are the answers we got. Well, how did you frame the question? Did you ask these families if they're okay? Did you ask each plan? It's almost, when you're talking about an IEP, right, an individualized education plan, the question every family needs to be asked is, how are you going to support yourself with your children at home?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you really need to work those other 2 days? Do you have a way to support yourself? Is there somebody who's living in your home who's paid to take care of your children and help them online?
Yeah.
Or not? And if the answer is no, then then that crisis, I think, needs to be addressed, just like we did with COVID, right? With the COVID crisis, healthcare, we looked at new places for hospital beds to be. And here the Craneway was taken over to take 270 hospital beds, which were never needed and hopefully never will be. Maybe the Craneway has to be taken over to take 2,000 children on the days that they're not able to do distance learning at school, when they have to do distance learning at home, so that there is some place for these children to go. And parents are relieved of this incredible responsibility that so many of them have right now, where they don't have a plan and they're expecting help in this plan, and it's not there.
It's not there. We've got situations where high school student said, I can't log on. I got to go to work. My parents lost their job, so it's up to me. So they're not going to lock back in. Or another where, like you said, so we could have children taking care of children, being left at home alone so that parents could, I mean, there's just so many issues like that. So what agencies are out there? What, like at this county level, in our, community-based organizations that could all come together?
The city recreation departments, right?
Yes.
There are people who've run all kinds of programs for children after school, and those need to be expanded. And we were talking to somebody only last week who was saying that in all of these plans, the folks who run the buildings that are not open don't seem to have as much to do, the administrators, right? They need to take it. This is a role for them to organize where the children will be, and not to just assume these children are taken care of in homes where people have to go to work. Where I believe, I am sure there are families that are desperately looking for someone to be able to be with their children those days because their employers are trying to get back to work, right? And there are definitely employers who are telling their employees that if they don't show up for work, they can't preserve their jobs because they can't not have the work get done.
Yeah, yeah. And we know evictions are happening. We know all of that is still going on. We, even no matter how much they say, there's
Families are
programs.
going to become homeless. I mean, this is evictions. What's happened is that you still owe that money. So if you lost your job, also unemployment's going to run out. I mean,
Yes.
there are all of these things that we know. And so in order for us as an organization, as a part of society, to say it's important to us that our children and our families stay strong, I just think that should have been at the top of the list of things that people were looking at. And it doesn't seem, but there are places that it was. There are states and that have simply said, yes, of course, we're going to take care of our families. We're going to come back. And what we're going to do is we're going to say we're coming back. And for those of you for whom coming back doesn't work, we're going to provide something that's online. But otherwise, we're going to come back. And even if we're going to have a cohort in the morning and a cohort in the afternoon, in the morning, you'll be in the classroom with your teacher. In the afternoon, you're going to be in the auditorium with the administrator.
Yeah.
Doing your work because you have your tablet, you can go on it and you can do it there. But you're coming back.
There's city programs, there's after school programs, there's county resources. These people all need to come together and find that these children need to come back in some form.
Right.
And
these families need to be supported.
Need to be supportive. There's teachers who have to stay home, it's true, but there's also teachers who would for a few days a week come, and so that it's a big coordinated
I
think that has to happen, but it's
happening. It's not like there aren't places that it's happening. I mean, so this story, it's an interesting thing. This story is being written now, and 5 years from now people will go back and say, so how did this all happen? And they'll go back and they'll look at all the different plans that different communities had and say, well, how come they couldn't figure out that if they didn't have any plan to take care of their families, that bad things would happen?
Yeah.
Right? How come they didn't care?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the question. Oh, well, they were focused on it wasn't their job. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Not in this district. It is our job. We do care about our community, our children, and our parents. We know that, but that's our job, really.
Yeah. So, and I think if there was when people are brought together, if each of the mayors in each of the cities were brought together, if that was the task force together with the county, and they were told, just like they came up with the idea of putting all of those hospital beds in the Craneway. Well, they could take them out because there's nobody in them, and they could put tables in there and get ready to put children there.
Yeah, because that's a big space. They could definitely social distance in that place.
Yep.
I know.
Right, but they're not even looking. I mean, every city has community centers. There's libraries. There are other cities. Even Los Angeles is looking at partnering with their libraries to figure out how they're going to do after school. Because it's not as if everybody's not being asked. It's just that it doesn't seem we're very far along with the answer.
Yeah. So we need to gather more models of where this is happening, best practices. It's not, I mean, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We know
No.
people are doing it. That's our thing. And we can bring those and share those, share
Right.
more.
Right. And it needs to be elevated as an issue. That's the big thing. I mean, what's fascinating to me is that you bring in a coordinator, to help you build a strategy, and you sort of don't include that.
Yeah. No, I know. It's very narrow focus. That means it's not going to work very well. It's not going to work very well.
Right. It's not going to work very well because you can't have, it sort of looks like the strategy is for families that have children. It's illegal to leave a child under 14 alone at home. Let's just say that. All right. So if you have children but if you have a 14-year-old, that 14-year-old can be in charge of the other children.
Yep.
So that 14-year-old is not doing a whole lot in ninth grade.
Not if
right?
they're working
I mean,
with their kids.
That's, anyway, so there's a lot more to come with respect to this. And for those of you who are hearing this, take a look and see what plans your communities have. And if you have ideas and if your communities have great answers, we would love to hear them.
Oh, we'd love to interview. We're going to
Yes,
interview
we would love to meet you and hear what they're doing. Because it is such a crisis, and it doesn't mean that everybody's shouldn't be heard and respected. So teachers who are really interested in making sure that that they feel safe are going to need to understand that the place that they can feel safe is online, is teaching online. That's where you're safe. But other teachers, the majority of teachers who responded to the survey were ready to go back.
Wow.
So there should be a way for them to do that
safely and come back. Absolutely. Yep. All righty.
Right.
Well, that's
So
all I
there's
got.
that.
Okay. What else we have?
Well, you want to talk about, now you had a board meeting this week, the African American Student Achievement Conversation.
Yes. And it was pretty good. And of course, there's always positive, negative, mostly negative responses from everybody. But it was a very, like I said before, these were good interventions. A lot of them are very, very wonderful. The one that we looked at also, the new, what's her academic officer, chief academic officer, that we need to hire a new one. So we were looking at that. And it was a special meeting specifically for that. And it was nice. It was a good thing to give that attention and to give the responses. And we also have the job description out for the new person to head that African American.
The new director
office. Yes. So that's
I'm posting that on our Trello board so that people can see it and how much work has been done, which doesn't mean that more work doesn't need to be done, because it certainly does. And I thought it was a really powerful look into how many efforts have been made over the years. And they only went back to 2015. I know, programs and all kinds of efforts that were in place many years before that. It's not as though that people didn't understand that systemic racism has had an incredibly terrible, tragic effect on the African American children in West Contra Costa and everywhere else. So
yeah, and that got me to thinking about we have these interventions because the system is broken. And so how do we look at the system itself and make the changes that we need in order to address more effectively the systemic racism. Because once those interventions go, then we're back to where we were, and you
Right.
still have struggling students. So that's something that's really important to me. I want to look at those and examine those and see, okay, how do we address this? Yeah, for sure.
And there are ways to do it. There are a lot of ways to do it, right? I mean, those the two young teachers that I spoke about, the education justice community, that's really where the answers are here, right? And some of the things we've talked about before, especially now, not having grading, I haven't seen that in any of these plans. Oh no, we're going to do it different, but we're going to still hold you to the same. No,
can't do that. Can't do that.
No, well, let's look at what is fair, so that and see that in the beginning, so people understand it. And the whole idea of project-based learning, having that be a focal point to how you learn online and what you're going to produce, and then that moves you away from standardized testing permanently. It just moves you away. Doesn't mean you still don't do assessments to see how much your children have learned so that you can move them on to the next place. You're still going to do assessments, but the big high stakes standardized testing, the over testing that has taken that is the reason, one of the biggest reasons that American children don't have anywhere near the number of days of education that other countries have. It's because we spend all these days teaching children to memorize to a test that really means nothing, except it lets us rank and sort our children.
Isn't that something?
Right?
Yeah.
What we've got, right? And it's got to go.
And I wrote an article. I wrote an article about it, in fact.
Yes, you did.
It's in the Standard. Richmond
and
Standard.
I'll put that. I'll post it. The link to the article in here. Now, you got any shout outs?
It's a real big issue.
Have we got a shout out?
No shout outs. I do have a joke.
Oh, you got a joke. Okay, well, let me just say the one shout out I wanted to do. Two things. I just wanted to point out that this week, the Supreme Court has sided with Betsy DeVos to increase vouchers. That's a bad sign. It's a really, really bad thing, but that's what they did. That's what they did. That's a big step backward.
So what's your shout out to them?
Well, my shout out is not to them. My shout out is to the two guys that made this website.
Oh, yes.
My shout out is to them, and I hope that we get to meet them. We're going to try and contact them. And I do recommend that you go. I will put the link in so that you can see the work that they've done, because they're needed now. They're right. So that's my shout out.
Yeah, that's a whole new way of thinking. It's not enough to say, I'm not a racist. Well, okay, but are you an anti-racist?
Exactly.
Really, let's define and explore that and bring recommendations.
It's a shift. It's a major shift that we really weren't talking about before, and they were talking about it 2 years ago. But it's the issue now. The time has come where it's elevated.
Yep.
Okay, but you have a joke.
Yes, another corny joke. Where do you learn to make ice cream?
I don't know, Miss Laura. Where do you learn to make ice cream?
At Sunday school.
There is a corny school joke, if ever there was one.
Corny.
All right, so we will see you. We'll see you again next time with more information on where we are with the school reopening world.
Right. Yeah, it changes every day.
It does. It changes every day.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
Bye.